Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles, McLennan, role play level of concern later in the hour. Ray Ferraro coming up as well from Edmonton, Game 3 tomorrow night. The Panthers, we believe, are in the air. They're on the way to Edmonton, Alberta. So they'll be prepared for the game tomorrow night. Catch up with Ray here in a moment. The Jays lost this afternoon, 5-4 to the Brewers. They dropped 2 of 3 in Milwaukee. And the offense is an issue. My boy Kikuchi, though, he was grinding last night, man. He was not happy with the umps. A couple of horrible calls.
Dude, that ump
a
was
few guys. Idiocy last night. Idiocy last night.
God.
Yeah, awful. Wasn't much of a ball game, but the Jays found a way to get a win, but they lost today. They're 2 games under 500. And, they had Spencer Horwitz leading off today. That's how desperate they are. This guy was in the minors a week ago. And they're like, we got to play this kid. And he had a couple of hits today. But you have Horwitz leading off, Schneider hitting second, Vogelback cleanup. That's their lineup.
Is there not like a massive upgrade trade for a stud type scenario option? Like they don't want to do that? Or like, why not make a trade? Like get a good player.
It's too late now, man. I think if anything, you're going the opposite way. They got to decide. I don't think they're going to completely sell off. I don't see that because the third wild card, it's a mirage, but it's there, right? It's like the play-in in the NBA. Like, teams are awful, and they're like, man, we could still get in. It doesn't mean you're really competitive.
Well, if you're going to sell the third wild card, don't you pull the trigger on something?
Well, what's available? What are you going to give up to get something? That's the problem. You're going to give up top prospects to bring something in for what? To win 85 games?
Okay, but let me offer you this. Giving your fan base this with the changes to the ballpark, you're going to give them this the whole season?
Well, that's where Joey Votto maybe comes in. And I don't think...
Come on, they've already got another 40-year-old on the team that's struggling. He's up and down. He's starting to come out of it in Justin Turner. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to bring in another 40-year-old?
I'm talking about selling tickets. Who are they going to get? You're not getting Bryce Harper. You're not getting Aaron Judge.
Dude,
you're just not getting
I'm
those
not
guys.
talking about Bryce Harper, but is there not a guy on a team that's absolutely garbage? And I know the Jays aren't that great. Who's garbage that's got a guy that can hit? There's got to be somebody, man.
I mean, I'm sure there's somebody somewhere, but the problem is they're competing.
Mike Trout's team.
Yeah, well, they're competing with the Yankees to get that guy. Right. They're competing with the Dodgers to get that guy. The Braves, the Phillies. That's the problem. Teams that actually have legitimate offenses and legitimate World Series chances are going to pay more because they believe in their team more.
I get it. I guess what I'm saying is if you're going to go the whole year with this roster and, this is it, go get them, boys, I don't think you're going to like where you're going to end up.
No.
Because it's pretty obvious. It's like any other sport where there's cutoff days where it's like, oh, you know what you got by then. You know what you got with the Jays.
Like Ross played a lot of games.
They played a lot of games. And in spring training, you're like, oh, these guys look okay. And then it's out of the gate, it's just like, that's just average or below average, and that's what they are.
Yeah.
So my question is that that's what the offer is? This is what the go get them, fellas?
Yeah, I think so. I ultimately, to give you my answer, I think so. I mean, the heavy lifting is in the offseason. They chose not to do it. They tried with Ohtani, but it got them nowhere. And as a result, this is your lineup now. And, they gave Vladdy the day off today. He's not hurt or anything. They just gave him the day off. But you got Vladdy, you got Bichette, you got Springer. That. This is what you have. This is what
thin.
It's incredibly thin, and that's where Votto comes in. If he returns, I could see them activating him. Bringing him onto the roster and saying, "Listen, maybe we can sell some jerseys. Maybe some people will buzz about the local guy playing for our team.
Sell some.
That's
jerseys.
my question.
By the way, Noodles, the comment it's thin. It's only thin when they play like they're playing. When you've got George Springer in a position where he's not even close to being like a feature spotlight guy in the lineup, it's like Bo and Vladdy playing the way. That's why it's thin.
Yeah,
because guys aren't playing.
They're not playing well.
No,
Yeah,
that's their lineup.
But you're also talking about Joey Votto. I don't know, Joey Votto coming in is gonna. Are people gonna go? I need a Joey Votto Blue Jay jersey. I don't know. Does he move the needle anymore? That's my question.
Not based on his play, but based on his name, he would.
Right.
It would be a compelling story.
Kid.
I'm not saying it will work. I don't know if they're going to do it, but he's the most famous baseball player from Toronto. He's the best Torontonian to ever play the game. Like, that's what he is. Yeah. He's a local guy. He's a quirky guy. He'll do his press conferences, and I don't know. They'll give him. I wouldn't be surprised if they give him a shot. I'm not saying they're going to make millions of dollars off of him, but look at your lineup right now. It's a mess. All right, so Florida, by all accounts, is in the air. They're on their way to Edmonton, and I'm assuming Ray's out there. Got to believe Ray's already made it. Here he is, Ray Ferraro, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Were you okay getting out of Florida and getting to Edmonton, and you make a pit stop in Vancouver, or what's going on with you?
I'm in Vancouver right now. We had about 90 minutes delayed yesterday. Noodles, I don't know if you hung out there long enough when you were playing there, but man, Florida, it's like twice a day in June you just get drenched, and you sit there till it ends, right? And so we sat there 90 minutes, and it didn't look good. And the pilot goes, "Oh, we've got a window. We're going to go up." And you're like, "Geez, I hope that's a big window." Like, how brave do we really need to be here, right? Mm-hmm. And but we got out yesterday, and that sucks for the Panthers to sit around there. But you guys aren't playing the plane; they'll play cards. They'll be fine.
Oh yeah, they'll figure it out, and they're in the air now. They'll make it. We had this conversation though about the league's responsibility with this, Ray. That should it have been the league's mandate? You had to leave yesterday. So you get there, there's no issues. You can do media. You got Edmonton buzzing. They're dying for this. They're dying to talk to Barkov and Kachuk and Paul Maurice. And now, weather's taking them out of that. And I guess we'll hear from them tomorrow morning, maybe later tonight. But I think this will be the last time we'll see that. I would assume the league will step in and say, you got to travel the day before so you take out any possible travel issues.
Well, the league does take over almost all of the prep before or during the final. Like things that we do all year to, even through the playoffs, to access information or places you can walk in the arena, and that's all changed come the final. And it's all, the league just takes charge of all of it. And so I'm not disagreeing with you. I think there's, each time something pops up, it's one thing that you maybe take a look at and go, oh, geez, I never even really thought this was going to be an issue. Because, of course, Florida doesn't want to leave right away. They're at home. They'd rather stay at home for the extra day, practice, and just get in like a normal. You don't want to make things too different, I don't think. You want to keep it in as much a routine as you can. And the 2-day break, of course, is different than at any other point in the playoffs for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, Ray, what do you make of, we were talking about Edmonton chasing the series now. What does Edmonton need to do to get back into this series? And do you think that they can do it if they execute it?
Well, so it's really interesting the way the first two games played, because I thought Edmonton was great in the first game. And I've done, 10 or so Florida playoff games this year, and that was by far the worst, least effective game that I saw them play. And so the chances of that happening again in game two seemed pretty slim. The problem was Edmonton, basically gave their best shot and lost. And I think game two felt almost predictable that Florida would be way better. I think as I look at the Oilers, the biggest thing that I see is because Kane is almost a non-factor. He just can't really move on the ice. He's doing what he can, but he just can't move. Like between, during a regular game when he's not banged up, he stands a little bit, on the bench at the end. He likes to stand, not sit. He never sits in the games now. Like clearly he's not able to. It's easier for him to stay standing. And why that's important is now basically you've got Draisaitl with who? Like with who? Dylan Holloway's a kid. He's just getting going. He's, nice start to the playoffs, and then it looks like it's a big ask for him in that position. They had, they tried Henrique there, although that went out the window when Fogle got kicked out, and Kane doesn't seem to be able to play there. And then when you get past those two lines, you're like, well, who scares you anymore? And so would be my biggest concern if I'm an Oiler fan is where are we outside of the power play really dangerous. Like if McDavid's not with the puck in his hands and Draisaitl needs the power play because he doesn't have much help right now, then it's a pretty small window to victory.
Ray, when you're down 2 Cobb, you're obviously first period, game 3. You're like, let's throw everything at these guys. We got to try to get back in the series. You're fighting for your life because you know if it goes south, you're screwed and you're done. Is there a worse team to have to do that against than Florida? Because it seems like you want to throw everything at them, but they don't let you throw anything at them.
You get by the first guy and you got another giant standing there.
Yeah,
and
like you want to put the full court press on, but it's like there's no press, period.
And then Bob's waiting for you anyway.
That's right.
Right.
Like I look like their third pair, right? And so you can say, oh, yeah, they're way past their prime. It's Kulikov and Ekman-Larsson. These guys have played like 2,200 games. Like they're just a couple of old war horses that are back there. That's their third pair. Montour's a really good player, really good. He's going to make a lot of money this summer. And Mikkola has really seen. I'm really wondering when I watch him play, like, why didn't the Rangers keep him? Like, why did St. Louis included him in the deal for Tarasenko? And I'm like, man, the guy's big. He's a moose, and he's always in the way. And then you got your top pair, with Forsling and Ekblad. I was like, so no matter what you do, they never seem to get really flustered. They never really get stuck. And that's why I thought the first game for Edmonton was so impressive. Because for the first time, Florida looked stuck. They looked like they weren't going to be able to handle the pressure, the speed, the skill. Man, I mean, Bobrovsky was so good in that first game. But I just don't know how you put them under duress long enough. Can you make them panic? Because I haven't seen it yet.
Well, and that's what's at stake here in terms of, superstardom up against this level of connectivity, I guess, the way that the Panthers play, because they shut down Point and Kucherov, then they shut down Marchand and Pasternak, then they shut down Panarin and Zibanejad, and now they shut down the 2 best players in the world. Like, McDavid is better than those other players, but not leaps and bounds. Like, he's better than Pasternak, but not by like a country mile. Same thing with Kucherov. And that's kind of what's amazing here is there's so much focus on those 2 players, McDavid and Draisaitl, and they look flustered. I thought the other night, I said it on our show, Ray, a lot of empty calories from McDavid. Like, he was skating, he was trying, but he never got on the inside, or barely did, and he looked flustered at times. He just kind of passed the puck off and say, screw it, you try it, man. I can't get in there. It's pretty wild to see.
It is, and, like we got Mess on our panel, and, when the Oilers won their 4 cups, right, the first time they got there, they got smoked by the Islanders. Mm-hmm. They got smoked. And, then the team got a little older. They they made a few changes, and it almost looks like, it's cliche to say, oh yeah, you got to get there and lose to know what it is to win. And maybe that's what happened with Florida last year. And maybe that's part of the difference here with the Oilers. Like when you look at what Florida has given up in these playoffs, the answer is not very much. In 12 of the last 13 games, they've given up 2 goals or less. So you're looking at, if we get 2, that might be it. Mm-hmm. In the playoffs, Forsling and Ekblad have played the majority of their time against Pasternak, Point and Kucherov, Zibanejad, Kreider, Panarin, McDavid, and they've given up 0 even-strength goals. Like, that just seems to me to be ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Like, how does that even happen? And that's part of the – like, I don't think Florida's invincible. I really don't, but it's not basketball, right? Like, McDavid can only be out there 21 minutes, and that's it, or 22 minutes, whatever you're going to play him, 25 in the first game. There's still 30 minutes a game left, 35 minutes when he's not on the ice. And Florida's just stronger. They're just deeper. They're like, we haven't even really seen, I guess Tkachuk was much better in game 2, but we haven't seen much from him in the series. Bennett's been really aggressive, really physical. I think he's got 17 hits. The Barkov really, their line at Sam Reinhart and Barkov haven't really had a game where they've been super dangerous yet, and they're up 2-0.
Mm-hmm. Ray, you mentioned that Ekblad-Forsling pairing. Like, it seems like that Ekblad, when you draft that stud defenseman from the Barrie Colts, Noodles touched on it. He wasn't great in game 1, but got better in game 2. Like, that's what you want that guy to become, is like that big guy that plays a lot. And that Forsling, like, didn't they pick him up off the scrap heap from somewhere?
Yeah.
Waivers,
and that guy's a stud.
Unreal player. Unreal. And I think this is probably, it's instructive for fan bases, although, it never really gets deep enough that anybody can take a deep breath. But he was a 5th-round pick by Vancouver. Vancouver had a team that, was closer to being a contender or trying to still hang on to being a contender. So they needed somebody to run their power play. So they traded him to Chicago for Gustav Forsling. They traded Forsling for Adam Clendening. And so Clendening was going to run the power play. Turned out he was more of an American League guy than an NHL guy. And then Chicago needed a veteran defenseman, so they traded him for Calvin DeHaan to Carolina. I don't know what the hell Carolina was doing because they didn't even get a player. They just put him on waivers. And now he plays 22 minutes a game. And he just signed an 8-year extension. And the other advantage to Florida, I think, so there's been times where you've probably wanted more from Ekblad or thought that there could be more. Maybe if he's in a different market, they lose patience with him. Mm-hmm. But he's in Florida, and it's quieter, and he's just kind of plugging away, and he's not going to ever be a 25-goal guy or, a dynamic this or that. But, man, he's really good. And the two of them together, like I said, they haven't been on the ice against the big boys for a goal against yet. Like, that just doesn't seem to add up. It's like they're like a finely running machine right now. They really are.
Well, and Ray, you throw in, I read this, but I also remember Joel Quenneville was a big part of Forsling ending up in Florida, I do believe, because he knew him from Chicago and knew
from Chicago, right?
Yeah, and I read that the other day, like, not lost in all this. Q, when they saw him on waivers, Q was really adamant to grab this guy because he was a difference maker, and obviously, there you go. I mean, the team has changed, all of that. Q is where he is, but he had a history with Forsling, and obviously, it's paid off for the Panthers.
That's huge.
Well, the way they've built the team, when you look at it, like Carter Verhaeghe was nobody's idea of a top line winger. He's in the East Coast League. And now you look at him and you're like, he's just like an opportunist. Like he's a volume shooter, but he doesn't need a lot of shots. He's got a really good shot. He's a better skater. And he was basically off the scrap heap, right? Like he was in the ECHL at one point. He played in Tampa, and Tampa didn't even qualify him. Won a Stanley Cup and signed it. He was a free agent, and Florida signed him. And so, like, they've got a number of these stories of guys that they didn't draft, that they picked up. That Sam Reinhart's another one. Lusterinen came from Carolina in a trade for Vinny Trocheck. Like, it's one after the other for them, and they are deep and big and mean, and whatever Edmonton's best game is, they've really have no choice. I mean, this is Game 7 tomorrow for them.
Ray, you touched on how these guys have eliminated the Barkovs and Bennetts and Ekblads, and they've shut down Kucherov, they've shut down Pasternak, and they shut down Panarin. I mean, when you get to the copycat league, and this might be a stretch, do you think it will ever change how people want to put their team together? I mean, the counter is Tampa. Braden Point, Kucherov, Stamkos, those guys got it done. They went to 3 finals in a row. Do you think it would change anything on how you would look at things or build it, draft it?
I'd say in the last couple of years, my view is more, I'm always hey, small guys can play too sort of guy, but I'm looking at Florida. Their smallest guy's Evan Rodriguez. The rest of them, they come in there, when they walk in out onto the ice, and it's like one giant after another. And I think for as much as, people like analytics and, the term I love, the old play driver, whatever that means. And a lot of times they're small guys. You can't have 4 small guys on your team. You can't, because
I don't want one.
Because the rink is a box. Eventually you're going to run out of space. And I'm listening to Chris Knobloch today, and he says, if we don't play fast and we don't win battles, we're not going to win. Well, as we know, when the puck hits the ice, as much as it's a team game, it is a series of one-on-one battles all over the place. And more often than not, a bigger guy is going to win that battle. And I would say if there's a copycat at all, that's going to be it, is that the realization of small teams don't last. They get hurt. They can't fight their way through 4 rounds of the playoffs. Just look at this thing. Doesn't the playoffs feel like they've been going on forever?
Mm-hmm.
And
3 years so far.
Is that what it is? I wondered how long I've been away, and it's just it just seems to me that you can try and mimic somebody else, to say about Tampa. Yeah, great, good. Go find Kucherov in the 2nd round. Go find Point in the 4th round. When does that happen? Never. I mean, it did, but the answer, you can't build your team like somebody else. I think you've got to have a format and a template, and those are the places you try to fill first, and then you work your way around it. Because trying to be somebody else in anything is, in my mind, a losing battle.
But Hayes brought it up yesterday, Ray. It's it always goes back to big, strong, and nasty. You got to have good players. You got to have skill. You got to have guys that can zip it around the power play. But big, tough, and strong seems to go the common trend that always comes back.
Well, you played in the final. By the time you got there, were you not beat to a grinder?
Yeah,
through the
you know what?
Yeah.
We were a big physical team, and it was just kind of standard protocol. We didn't feel beat up at all, to be honest with you.
But my point is, you got there and you saw how hard it is. Now imagine if you're trying to go through that and you got 3 forwards that weigh 175 pounds.
Well, the point is you're not getting there with those guys, those Smurfs running around. Whoever I don't know, I'm not getting.
No, it doesn't work that way.
But you can have 1 or 2, and they got to be exceptional. They've got to be standouts, but they got to be brave. Because I'm telling you, I'm down there. There is not 1 foot of ice in the final that goes by without somebody running into somebody giving them a slash in the back of the legs. It's brutal. It's brutal, and it's not as brutal as it used to be, but it's so fast. Every time somebody goes past somebody, you can hear it. It's there's a little bit of a car crash, a little fender bender on every play, and it wears you down. And Florida just looks like they're just kind of bounce from collision to collision, and it doesn't really seem to slow them down.
With Ray Ferraro, you mentioned Montour, who's a UFA after this year. He's 30. The amount of money he'll make. The belief is the Leafs will be hunting for at least one, if not multiple, defensemen. Is Montour a guy you could see making sense here? Pesci, how do you think the Leafs are going to handle trying to find these 2 defensemen via free agency?
Well, how much money are we getting to play with?
Well,
and don't you need the Ekblad to have the Montour? If you're going to have Montour in, and we've seen it time and time again, they've got Montour to run the power play, but they've also got Ekblad to log the 30 minutes behind him, where it's just you don't have to do that too. So what happens is if you don't have the Ekblad, you're bringing in the Montour saying, you got to run the power play, and you also got to log those heavy minutes as well. And it's too much, and then you're screwed because you realize you can't do both. You need the Ekblad before you have the Montour.
Okay, except it's all fantasy, except you start looking at what you really do have, right? What do you have in Toronto? You have Morgan Riley. Guess what? You're not on the power play anymore. You're now my second pair guy, or you're going to play against the other team's top guys. We don't really care if you get 10 points or 40 points. It really doesn't matter. And you have to ignore his contract number because you've already got him at that number. Are they going to re-sign Joel Edmondson? If you have Edmondson, well, guess what? You've got to be the Nico Mikkola for Montour. So Montour has the room to move around the ice. And so you start, if you're trying to build in the Florida format, that's how you start, I think, emulating. But again, you can't have what everybody else has. Mm-hmm. You've got what you got. And so I'm looking, the first thing you got to determine, of course, and they will, and they're doing it now, is what are we going to have money-wise? Like I'm reading all this stuff, they should trade for this guy, and what about this trade? And I'm like, none of it matters unless you know how much money you've got to deal with. Like all these prospective deals for Marner, guess what? There is no deal until he says there is one. Mm-hmm. And right. So it's all noise. And I know everybody's interested, but man, that whole move there probably determines a lot of what the summer is all about.
Well, and keep in mind, you just mentioned Morgan Rielly. Say he gets pushed to a second. That's what happened to Darnell Nurse at $9 million, right? Because now Ekholm and Bouchard are there. Darnell Nurse doesn't get the power play time. He doesn't get. So now people look at him and go, you don't get any points, and your plus-minus stinks. So that could happen to Morgan Rielly if you end up bringing somebody else to play on that power play, and you push him down. What does Morgan make? 7.5?
7.5, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to push down to a second pairing if you're mindful of money, and the Leafs have to be mindful of money, right?
Absolutely.
And so that since they've all got no move clauses, you've got to work around the no move clauses. As saying, okay, these are the tent poles in my lineup, and I've got to put people around them. And when you put those dollars there, that's going to determine. Like, you might love Brandon Montour, you might love him, you might love Brett Pesce, but what if your cap room tells you can go to X number of dollars with Pesce, and someone offers him $500,000 more per year for 5 years? I'm sure he can do the math and go, you know what? While I might like that, I like the other place. It's a pretty good team too. And you end up, you either blow your brains out and say, screw it, we're going to pay the guy more than we want to, or you move on to the next guy. And it's going to happen fast around those 20 guys or so on July 1st. And then once it settles onto July 3rd or 4th, 5th, that's where the ones with the value deals, you start looking at, can I get a guy that's 80% of Brandon Montour for half the price?
Yeah.
And
that's coming up then quick, you end up, fellas, too. That's 3 weeks away. We've lost sight of July 1st around the corner, man. Like, it's right around the corner where all this stuff's going to go down.
How about this? If the thing goes to Game 7, which is the 24th, the draft's the 28th or 29th. Yeah. Like, they're going to go basically, I don't even know what Edmonton, I guess they would go home, like the management, but they got to turn around and get ready and be at the draft. Like, it's a crazy schedule the way it's set up right now.
Could you imagine if they did it by Skype? Didn't they let go the soccer guy by Skype? What was that guy's name?
Ralph Kruger. Yeah.
So what
Freddy
if they did
Krueger on Skype?
What if they did the draft by Skype? Just sat there in a room.
Or you had the draft while the parade's going on, and you're Skyping on the parade. You're just an iPad head on a top of a bus.
It's not going to be that much different. If it goes 7, the winning team is going to be in. I guess you care a lot less because you're sitting there on a Stanley Cup. But holy smokes, it's a tight turnaround. And then next year, it's not whatever it's going to be. It's going to be online. Like there is no draft site. It's all the teams are going to be at home. So that will be a crazy thing to look at too.
No kidding. It's coming. All right, buddy. Safe travels for Game 3. Thanks for doing this. We appreciate it.
I missed just the end of the Blue Jays talk. You were like, what did they think was going to happen? They were going to score a bunch of runs this year with the same guys?
Yeah,
we got on it. We're out of time.
They're just not fun, Ray. It's not
fun.
And
then I love Joey Votto. He's hilarious, and he was an amazing hitter. But when you said, like, is he going to come in? People going to buy his jerseys? Who was the guy that did the interview with the banana? That's why he didn't cramp up.
Oh, who was that? Kawasaki.
Remember him?
Kawasaki. Muni
Kawasaki.
Kawasaki.
Yeah, like I don't know, like what?
Every day, 3 banana.
3 banana, no cramp. It was fantastic.
Yeah, he sold some jerseys. Don't sell Kawasaki short.
He was a fan favorite.
We appreciate it because the team stunk. Like, just throw him out there. Just play him. Who cares?
I do. I really do enjoy tuning in to watch the Jays when I can. And, would you look at that? It's 3-1.
Yeah.
Shocker.
They
got one again.
Like watching paint dry. It is so tough. So tough to
and
track.
You got to get in there. You could change the whole thing. You could really do
I got plans for it.
Oh, yeah.
I got plans. I'm sending an email later tonight.
Guys, don't
I'll
let
CC
them,
you
let
on
them
that.
get out of the studio, guys. Don't let them do it.
Right, exactly. Don't worry about it. Thank you, buddy.
Okay, boys. Be well. Talk soon.
There's Ray Ferraro, TSN, ESPN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Yeah, the Panthers, you look at the defense. A lot of things have to fall in your lap, but you got to be smart. Like, you got to pluck these players. And it's similar to what Colorado had because, different styles of players, but Ekblad first overall, Makar fourth overall. Remember their third pairing was Jack Johnson, Eric Johnson. That's Kulikov and Ekman Larson, like two grizzled vets, big guys who didn't play a ton, but you knew what you were getting.
Yeah.
They, you found Taves because the Islanders gave him up for some reason. There's maybe,
for a second rounder, wasn't it?
Yeah. Montour was traded
and then
to
years later, they were looking for an offensive defenseman, so they went and got Romanov.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny, though? That's where, and we could talk about, we got to go, but the way the Panthers are built, like all we've been talking about, you got to draft, you got to develop, like they're the complete opposite. Like it's draft and develop a few guys, and the rest it's like, hey, we signed this guy, we found this guy in waivers, it's a mishmash of Reinhardt's acquired, Verhaeghe, Forsling, Bobrovsky signed, like the core is you traded for Tkachuk, like
traded for Bennett.
Barkov. Who are we talking about?
Signed
Barkov
Bob.
and Ekblad.
Yeah, like honestly,
Yeah.
it's Ekblad and Barkov. Those are the two guys who are homegrown. First overall, second overall, but almost everything else is from elsewhere. And you got to give credit to Bill Zito and previous administrations down there. They found these guys and they put together a great team. All right, role play level of concern coming up. Our PGA picks as well for the U.S. Open coming up. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
You can never ask me to stop drinking. Do you understand?
I do. I really do.
All right, role play level of concern brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. BP is all in on supporting the Oilers to end the 30-year drought. They're changing their logo from red to orange until the Oilers win it. Boston Pizza wants all of Canada on board to bring the cup home where it belongs. See you for puck drop and join us cheering on the good guys. History awaits. All right, role play level of concern where we added an option.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
Yes, Stephen Caldwell. So now you can be Stephen Caldwell.
Where does that fall for us? Our scale is so jacked up, and it's so
It
tough.
is. I think it's Pine on the Patio.
Then Stevie?
Rick Bushwood, Stephen Caldwell, Wade Boggs at a Lightning game, Nick Cage. I think.
Wade Boggs at a Lightning game is after Stevie Caldwell.
Dude, that's like 48 on ice, man. Like Wade Boggs.
Rick Bushwood is quite aggressive. I feel like Stevie Caldwell is before Rick Bushwood.
I don't think
Apparently
so. Caldwell's got
Boggsy
whiskey.
Apparently
Rick
Boggsy's-
Bushwood's just got beers, man.
6
Caldwell,
Busch Light, 6 Bud Light, and I
but
love
that's
them.
12
Cowboys.
beers.
I
That's
understand that. Play Caldwell again.
Yeah.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
That
So
sounds
6 and 2.
casual, though. The way he says that's kind of like relaxing.
All right.
Apparently,
Yeah.
Boggsy started going to Lightning games, and he got a hankering for it.
Mm-hmm.
And he would go through the back security, and he would show up with 18 pack. He would start bringing his own
I love
pints
it.
to these. This guy's insane.
I love that, man.
And the people, the security, are like, "What the hell are you doing? You can't bring your own beer into this." It's a hockey game."
BYOB at a sporting event.
That's
Only
that's
Wade
old
Boggs.
school.
All right. Oh,
Hit
you're
me.
playing. I don't know what we just established. Just do whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're playing the role of hockey fans who love blockbuster trades. What is your level of concern this summer will play out like many of the past without much action?
I think I'm a Stevie Caldwell.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
Because that... Play it again, please. Just one more so I can get a good view.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
Because that might just take off the sting that I know it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's always talk of these monster trades, and wait till you see what happens on July 2nd and who's in play. Okay, I'm horned.
Yep.
But nothing happens. I get so. Remember what about the draft talk? Wait till that
the
draft
happens
is
at the worst every year.
No, that trade always happens at the draft table. Okay,
right.
Well, where is it?
Tracking GMs talking to each other, could be something brewing. Meanwhile, the two of them are like, "Where are we going for dinner later? What you want? Steak? You feeling like an Italian joint? Chinese? What are we thinking?" I mean, it's the same thing every year. I think it's at least a Stephen Caldwell. I'd go probably higher than that.
I'm telling you, maybe I'm
Every
wrong.
year,
Noodles, you say this every year
There's
too.
Going to be
this
a
year's
huge
going to
trade
be
this year.
Huge.
There's going to be a huge trade this
With
year.
Mitch Marner, I guess that classifies. If Mitch is the guy,
I don't know. I don't think Mitch Marner. I've told you this. I don't think Mitch Marner's going anywhere. I think what'll happen is it got really noisy. It's getting quieter. The cup will get handed out. Everyone's going to get excited about the Leafs. In September, he's going to have a good preseason. By November 15th, he's going to have 28 points in 12 games, and people are going to go, got to sign this guy. He's an all-star. He's all of this, and you're going to forget all about last year. I'm telling you, I've seen it too many times in this market, Brian.
I understand that.
It's the Nylander. We were talking last year, 8.5, 9 million, 40 goal scorer, 11.5 by the time it was all said and done.
Yeah. Well, that's the Leafs. That's not the market. The Leafs are the ones that hand out that money.
And they didn't listen to us. But my point being is the excitement and people down on Mitch Marner, he starts making those regular season dipsy-doodle, watch
Which
this
he
pass,
will.
Matthews. And he will because he's a superstar.
Yeah, you're right.
So, but I think a big trade's coming. I'm not saying Leafs. I'm saying it could be a league trade. Who knows?
Okay, you're
There's
calling
some big names that are RFAs right now.
Right.
Big names.
Right. Okay.
The way I would look at my roster if I was the Maple Leafs is there's a good chance we're going to get the Florida Panthers in the first round. So what are we going to look like? Because what else? They're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. They're not going anywhere. We see how they play. We've seen how they eliminate skill. So what are you going to do to counter them? You get them in the first round.
I think that's reasonable. They have a lot of turnover too, right? Like Montour. They've got a number of depth forwards. Reinhardt, exactly. Montour and Reinhardt are big pieces. Maybe they return, but yeah. And listen, that's the reality where the Leafs are at. It's not an excuse when you're talking 57 years without a cup or a cup final, and year after year it's the same thing. But Tampa, Florida, Boston, that's your division. And that's been your division for years. Tampa won 2 cups, went to 3 cup finals. Florida's been to back-to-back cup finals. I think they're about to win one. And Boston was in a cup final in 19 and had the greatest regular season of all time. That's who the Leafs are up against. Yep. Like, it's the toughest. It's the AL East. It's the toughest division in hockey, and it has been for years. And, it's not going to change. Can't get out of it. What are you going to do? You got to find a way to beat it. Noodles, you're playing the role of Chris Knobloch, Oilers head coach. What's your level of concern? McDavid and Draisaitl will not be able to overcome Bobrovsky and the Panthers' smothering defense.
Well, I mean, are you talking about just goals and points or wins?
Yeah, point production.
I'm not Nicolas Cage, but I'm not I might be Stevie Caldwell.
Stevie.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
I just love hearing that.
I'm playing that regardless of how I feel.
I exactly. I feel like you might be a mid-level. Now, it's their job to figure out the way through it.
Right.
Let's play it one more time, please. I just need to hear
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
Because obviously 2 games are concerned, but now you got an opportunity on home ice maybe to find a little different matchups, all of that type of stuff. So we'll see. I mean, ultimately, it's come up feathers. I mean, McDavid has an assist. That's it. So they need to get going, and tomorrow night's game is critical. I'm not Nick Cage, though, because I think they're just too good.
They're best players in the world.
So they'll find a way, but it's not going to be easy. Florida's they've been a hell of a team, and they're not slowing down.
Well, look at this stat. Who is Frank McCool? How am I not familiar with that name? In 1945
Why is he on your top
for the Leafs.
100 of the all Leafs? Right?
How am I not familiar with Frank McCool? So up on TSN.
No disrespect, I've never heard that.
I honestly think that's a fake name. I'm not even sure that's a real name. Frank
Joe
McCool.
from the Bridge is trying to make a splash coming back.
Right.
That's a made-up name.
We have a board up here. Fewest goals against through 2-game Stanley Cup history. In 2008, Osgood and the Red Wings, 0 goals against. That was against Sid and Malkit and the Pens. That went 7, I believe. Marty Brodeur in 2003. Frank McCool with the Leafs in 45. And then Bobrovsky only giving up a goal so far. So it hasn't happened much. There's Johnny Bauer back in 67. The Leafs won that. That's what they're up against. But, yeah, I think that's reasonable level of concern. I think Stevie Caldwell works.
Mid-level.
All right, I'm playing the role of Dana White. What is my level of concern? Conor McGregor is never going to fight again in the UFC, and UFC 303 is officially in gong show mode.
Why, is he pulled out?
Well, Ariel Helwani reported today, and Ariel's as connected as anyone. Last week, Ariel reported there's a lot of positivity. It looks like it's all good. Don't worry about the canceled presser. But now today, Ariel updated that and said there is no positivity, and it's not trending well. And
play it.
I would play it, but I'm playing Stephen Caldwell because I don't care what it is.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
I'm Stevie every single time.
We got to see if Stevie can do us a favor. We need more Stevie Caldwell options.
Yes.
Like, just get him to rhyme off a couple things. A bottle of Jack and 12 beers. Like,
right. We need him maybe to be everything.
18 beers and 4 shots.
He's just got to narrate it. That's it. A pint on the patio and then up to
maybe he can narrate the whole thing. And we can say what we want, and it's Stephen Caldwell actually just saying it. Except for maybe Nick Cage. Like, I think Nick Cage,
we just keep Nick Cage and see if Stevie and Doogie, you've got to arrange this and just surprise us. We'll say how concerned we are, and then we get a Stevie Caldwell
drop. Pint on the patio, lads.
Yeah,
a pint on the patio, lads.
And maybe 2.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
Yeah, we need Stevie to be the voice
of this. The thing is, though, I think we need clarification because when he says a couple whiskeys, that could be 6.
That's bottles,
dude.
Right, like it could be.
That guy.
Like I don't. Bottles. A couple whiskeys, like those could be long pours. You're right. Those could be. Those could be like in Alberta, it's called a Mickey, which is a 13-ounce half bottle, right?
Same thing here, man.
Oh yeah, so you could be a couple Mickeys, which would be that's 26
that's 8
ounces.
fingers of scotch and 5 or 6 beers.
That's one of Stevie Caldwell. He's going to say 8 fingers of scotch and 5 or 6 fingers.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
I love it.
Yeah, I think Dana White is Stevie Caldwell right now because I'll believe it when I see it. McGregor is a draw. I will watch it if he fights.
He's the only guy I'll watch. I
got to watch him because he's a character, man. Like, you love him, hate him, whatever. The guy is what he is, and he's the definition of a box office draw. And he's never been a guy running away from fights. I don't know if he's got it anymore because he hasn't fought in so many years. And he's got so much money. He's got other things going on. He's got his own whiskey. He's in movies now.
Yeah.
Fighters, you have to have a crazy mentality to fight. Like, if you're off by an inch, it could be lethal. Yes. Like, you could put yourself in a really bad position if you're not 100% committed to it. I'm not sure he is. So, yeah, I'd generally be Nick Cage, but I'm Stephen Caldwell on that one. All right, we'll come back with a few more. We got Darren Dreger still to come. We've got our picks still to come. Boy, Steve Sands coming up. Lots cooking today. Stephen Caldwell, he will be narrating this moving forward. I hope. Hopefully he'll accept that. I don't see why he wouldn't.
Just a bunch of different options, like just where it sounds amazing.
Right.
Like just.
Yeah, we need like cocktails that are Scottish, and I don't know what that is, but like, a Glasgow kiss or something like that on ice. That's what we need.
Dude, a Glasgow kiss is when you split someone's forehead open with a headbutt.
Yeah, it's a headbutt. But for that, I wouldn't be shocked if it's also a drink.
That's
it's a summer drink over there.
No, that's what it'll end with. 2 whiskeys, 6 drinks, and a Glasgow kiss. Like that's actually like the cherry on top.
That's furious.
That means you
That's
go out.
furious.
That means you go out and fight somebody in the parking lot,
That's
or
a
you
lot of
fight your
concern.
buddy because you have a disagreement on who's the best soccer player, footy player in the world. Like there's
a
a
lot of
fight
concern.
involved in that too.
Yeah, you're right. That's a lot of concern.
Yeah.
Begbie from Train Spotting, just throwing glasses from the second floor. That's a level of concern we're bringing to the table moving forward.
Hey,
All right, there you
come
go.
back from commercial. We're going to show a little pick and a hole-in-one update from one of our closest friends.
I love it. Okay,
Oh, wow.
Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
So, Hazy, we played a great golf course yesterday with our buddy Donnie Nichols. Peter Millard, G4. He's our main man.
Mm-hmm.
And the 16th hole, where you guys ultimately crushed our dreams as per usual. I'll get into Duthie's act with the 13 shots a little bit later. But it's 245 up the hill into the smoke all the time. And today, Donnie plays every day, and he aced the hole with a hybrid. There he is, our guy.
What a stud.
Hole-in-one at Beacon Hall 6. Anyone that's played that hole from relatively close to the back tees knows what that's all about.
Beast, man.
Dude.
We're hitting 3-woods.
Dude, I've seen good players hit drivers.
I thought of it yesterday, and I probably should have. Duthie threw a dart in there, lagged up a birdie putt, so we won the match, which I appreciate. Great sportsman.
Yeah.
And I won't.
But congrats, Donnie.
Shout out to Donnie. Yeah,
Yes,
decked out
Donnie.
too, man. He's got the Gallivant Tour shoes there.
But there's a question about yesterday. I talked to James last night, and I was griping about his golf game. He goes, Jeff, that's what 10 handicaps do.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, oh, that's interesting. We had to give you 13 shots.
That is true.
So-
he may have outed himself as a
Yeah,
bagger
he slipped a little bit. Why did the
Yeah.
13 all of a sudden come up? We
I
got to
don't
get
know.
into Duthie, too. Apparently, he blew off Farhan Lalji. And I got a message from one of the greatest veterans in NHL history, Scotty Thornton. Said, Jeff, I tried to say hi to Duthie and Pierre LeBrun at the airport, and they blew me off like I was some Joe Blow. I said,
kidding?
what the hell are you talking about?
All right.
Yeah,
we'll
we gotta
address
get
that in the
into
next hour. We will address it, okay?
Cold
Final
call
hour
Duthie.
coming up. We will. We'll figure it out. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050, soon to be up on TSN 2.